So in today's video, I'm going to be going over my top ETF index fund picks, and these are my top 5 picks in no order. And I'm also going to link other ETFs with nice return in the description because I definitely won't be able to cover everything. So before we get into it, I just want to say this is my opinion, and there are so many ETFs out there. Just find the one that best suits your investing goals. And if I tried to cover all of them, this video would take forever because there's literally an ETF for everything. This video did take a long time to research and put together, so if you could just drop a like, and if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. Also, shout out to one of my subscribers, James Ross, for the comment suggesting this video. I'm always open to videos, and it actually helps me learn, and he's just been a great supporter of mine, so shout out James. Also, I'm working on getting a nice camera and setup in the coming months so I can actually put myself on screen and show myself a little more. And it seems like people are interested in my content, so thank you, and I'll be working on that. In the meantime, if you want to get to know me a little more, my Instagrams are below. One is more like workout focused and recipes, and then one is just like my personal life, so feel free to follow those or check them out if you want. Alright, let's get into it. So why buy an ETF or index fund? Basically, it just gives you a broader market exposure, and on average, it beats handpicking stocks. You basically get a ton of stocks in a basket instead of just picking one stock, so you get a lot of exposure, like I said. It's nice if you really don't know what to buy, or you're not that into tracking stocks and looking at them every day. If you want to just put your money into something and watch your money grow, most of these will do that for you. And yeah, it's just a way that you don't really have to pay attention and let your money work for you. It's also good if you don't have loads of cash to dump into individual stocks. Most of the time it's going to be less risk, and it's more diversified and pretty solid annual return. So step number 1 is going to just be to identify your investing goals and pick which ETF meets your needs. So there's a couple different categories down here. We have the growth ETFs, the safe ETFs, and kind of 50-50. So I put some examples of different ETFs down here. I suggest you check them all out. I kept finding more as I was prepping this video, but these are the ones that really stood out to me. I won't be able to cover them all, but I suggest you do some of your own research on each one of these. So as far as the growth ETFs, it's going to be more volatile, higher risk, higher reward, but the top growth stocks in those ETFs are the stocks that I would like to invest anyway, and it takes quite a bit of money to get in those top holdings. So going with either of those ETFs would be a good choice for someone like me. But like I said, it really depends where you're at in your investing career. And if you are closer to retirement in your later years, going with those conservative ETFs that just have a safe annual return, steady, and pays a nice dividend is probably up your alley. But if you're on the younger side, people say you can kind of stomach more risk, and you're younger in your career, so you're looking for more growth. So yeah, let's dive into these. I'm going to try to run through these ETFs fairly quickly. So number 1 is going to be VGT, and that's Vanguard's Information Technology ETF. And as you can see, one share is pretty pricey, but if you compare that to one share of Apple, that's pretty much like $360 right now. It makes sense. You're getting exposure to, look at these top 10 holdings. So it's making your money go a lot longer than it would if you individually invested in these. And it's a lot safer, in my opinion, to get into all of these because there's no way all of these fail. I mean, their top 10 holdings have bright futures ahead of them. And it makes up over half of this ETF, just in the top 10 holdings. This is a pure tech ETF, so you won't see Google, Facebook, or Amazon in here. So that's something to consider if you really like those top holdings. As you can see, on the Vanguard website, they said that this risk potential is at 5, and in my opinion, that just has to do with these tech stocks being more volatile. But as you can see, then they have a nice return, and Vanguard really focuses on their low expense ratios. Next up, we have TRIPLEQ, which is Invesco's Trust Series 1, and this is one of the stocks that James Ross put me onto, and I really like this one. I'm really considering getting into this. It mirrors the NASDAQ 100, and you get exposure to more than just tech. So you get a little bit of consumer discretionary in there as well. Really nice return of 18% roughly, and it's not as pricey as VGT. Does pay a little bit of a dividend on the lower end, but that's okay. It's more of a growth, you're going for that growth and return. And their top 10 holdings make up over half of the ETF as well, and I really, really like the top 10 holdings. I can't afford, with my buying power, I wouldn't even want to buy a share of Amazon because that would just take up so much of my buying power right now. But it'd be cool to get a little bit of exposure to Amazon and Google. Those are pretty expensive stocks, so their top 10 holdings are definitely something I'm considering getting into. The expense ratio is quite heavy, but it's worth the return. And I'll throw up a screenshot of what expense ratio means, just for those of you who don't know. Also, feel free to pause the video anytime and read through these slides. I made sure to put a lot of information on each of these slides, just so you guys have a better understanding of each of these ETFs and what they're about. But I did find this article, and I took a screenshot of it, just saying be warned about TRIPLEQ. There's a problem with this index because it makes up 61% is information technology, and it's not diversified enough. But that's what basically a tech ETF is. And I really like the top 6 holdings, so I don't see an issue with it. That's what I would be loading my money into anyway. And I know people that just have like Apple, Microsoft, and Facebook for their 3 holdings, and that's where all their money goes. So actually, TRIPLEQ would be a better bet for them. And I just wanted you guys to be aware of this, that you are really getting into a tech-heavy ETF with this one. But, I mean, those top 6 is what I would load my money into anyway. Next one on the list is going to be SCHD. And as you can see, the current price is pretty attractive right now. You can really pick up quite a few shares and expect to get a monthly dividend from this one. Pays a really nice dividend, so that's pretty much what this ETF is for. Don't expect a lot of return on this one. As you can see, the top 10 holdings, they're not that attractive. They're just some dividend stocks, not very volatile. So basically, just get this if you just want a nice monthly dividend payment. Next up is another dividend payer, and this is SCHD. So high dividend, low volatility ETF. Current price is $51.69, so you could load up quite a few shares. Dividend yield's pretty nice at 3.55%, and they do have a lower expense ratio than SCHD. The average return is roughly 7 to 9%, which is what most people go for. And they do have 104 holdings, so this makes it more diversified than SCHD. Also, all of their holdings must have companies that have a 10-year history of paying dividends or more, so that should make you feel pretty safe. Looking at their return over the last 5 years is 9.15%. If you look at this year, it's going to be negative, but that's just because of the pandemic. So overall, you can expect around 7 to 9% return. And the last ETF of the day is going to be VTI, which is Vanguard's Total Stock Market ETF, very similar to VOO. This is a very popular one. This is probably the first one that I ever learned about and what most people would go with. Decent dividend, low expense ratio, not too expensive, but this is going to be your best overall bet for exposure, growth, and safety, in my opinion. So if you are stuck in the middle of wanting growth and wanting safety, probably go with this one. You can see their top 10 holdings are like a nice 50-50 mix of safety and growth, and definitely one to consider. So just a little bit more about VTI. Feel free to pause and read through this, but basically this is just saying how diversified it is and how broad of an exposure you get to small cap, mid, and large cap companies. So this ETF really just covers everything, and it's one of those that you can just put money in and forget about for 20 years and just have it grow for you. So like I said, I wouldn't be able to cover everything today, but here's a list of some pretty popular ETFs, especially SPY. That's a very popular one, and just showing their total returns and their expense ratios. So definitely take a screenshot of this and go look all of these up and just pick which one is right for you. So if you held roughly $1,100 in each of these, this is the dividend payments you would receive. And I just wanted to demonstrate which ones pay the most. So like I said, SPHD and SCHD will be your highest dividend payers, followed by VTI. And then the tech ETFs, the tech heavy ETFs really don't pay that much because the top holdings in those ETFs typically don't pay a lot. So yeah, that's pretty much the breakdown for the dividends. So the main takeaway from this video is to just pick an ETF that suits your investing goals. And if you did want to go with two or more, I'll show you a website that you can use to check the overlapping of the ETFs, because you really don't want to overlap. It makes no sense to do that. Don't overthink this too much, because any of the ones I showed today will probably have a better return than if you went out and individually picked stocks for the most part. But yeah, just research until you find one that fits you. And also, I wanted to mention M1 Finance allows you to create your own pie or your own ETF. And that can be difficult to do and cost more money, but it's an option I wanted to mention. The main thing I focus on when picking an ETF is just like my overall goal. Do I want high return, high dividends? What are their top holdings and do I like them? How much is the expense ratio and how much does it cost? So those are things I like to think about. So I did find this article basically showing how SCHD and SPHD go great together. And there's I'll put this in the description, but there's some highlights and it shows the breakdown of each of them right here. And they really don't overlap too much. So you can really maximize those dividend payments by doing this. Okay, so on etfrc.com, which will be linked in the description, you can check the overlapping of ETFs. So I plugged in SCHD and SPHD, and you can see they really don't overlap too much, only about 24%. And if you checked something like VGT and QQQ, let's find the overlap in those, and it's quite a bit. So you really don't want to hold both of those, it'd make no sense. And if you typed in VTI, you will see these overlap quite a bit as well. So 90% of TRIPLEQ's holdings is also in VTI. So that's where you kind of want to decide which one you want to go with. And if you really can't decide, I don't think it hurts to go with both, as the overlapping isn't too much, but a lot of people wouldn't suggest doing this. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. This video did take a long time, so if you could just drop a like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed, I'd really appreciate it. You can get your 2 free stocks with Webull and 1 with Robinhood in my description when you sign up. And that's pretty much it. Drop a comment on any videos you guys want to see in the future, and I will try to work on making them. Have a good one.
Stacking vertical, ooh, counting sideways, ooh, ain't by my cake, ooh, get out my face.